Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome to the Wobble Enjoy Sports channel. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuing support. Legitimately, I cannot record this video any other time but right now on a Sunday night at about 9 o'clock in the evening. I'm going to get it out to you. Maybe immediately, maybe first thing Monday morning. So I apologize if that's not what you prefer. It's not what I prefer. Again, I always prefer to present the information to you with team lists, but I just don't have another opportunity this week to record at an appropriate time and not have the YouTube algorithm absolutely send me down into the well, basically. So I may as well just conform and join the rest of everybody else that seems to be doing their tips first thing on a Monday morning. So here I am. Finals week 2 is this weekend. And after what we just saw over the weekend, especially today, oh man, bring on week number 2. Let's get stuck into this preview tips. Week 2 of the finals starts on Friday night down in Amy Park. The Melbourne Storm host the Sydney Roosters. On tab, the Storm are $1.32. The Roosters are $3.30. Between the two sides, this will be the 48th meeting, and the Melbourne Storm have the overall head-to-head record at 28 wins to 19 for the Melbourne Storm. There have been 5 matches played in finals football between these two sides, and it's actually the Roosters who have the overall head-to-head ledger at 3 wins to 1 over the Melbourne Storm. That only Storm win in finals footy over the eastern suburbs came in 2015. The Roosters have won down at Amy Park. No, not Amy Park, but they have one down in Melbourne, but that was way back in 1998 or thereabouts. Melbourne have won 8 of the past 11 encounters between the Roosters since 2019. They won both of their clashes rather handsomely earlier this season. However, the Roosters do have a recent victory over the Storm down at Amy Park. They got a dub at Amy Park just last season. Now, as so far as team lists go, obviously I don't have any, but Ryan Papenhuyzen, Godspeed, Xavier Coates are both going to be ruled out this Friday night. One with a broken ankle, the other one, I think, with another broken ankle, or at least syndesmosis for Xavier Coates, unfortunately. And Marion Seve, one of the centres for the Storm, did go off for a HIA, did not return, so his position is cloudy. Who would come in for them? Well, Ryan Papenhuyzen, he was coming off the bench in jersey 17. One or two things could happen. Number one, could just be Bronson Garlick that comes in. He was jersey 14 last weekend, but he was omitted from the side just before kickoff into jersey number 18. Or the young man who made his debut a couple of weeks ago against the Broncos on Friday Night Footy and took over the Twitter sphere for 24, 48 hours, Mr. Longo. Do you bring someone like him off of the bench and try and utilize some sort of speed or X factor? But then again, in his second ever game, I know we've seen the likes of a Kalen Ponga debut in first grade in a finals match, but that's some serious pressure on one young Longo. And then Marion Seve, who would come in for him potentially if he's not fit to play. Justin Olam could make a return to first grade. I mean, that's a truckload of experience and a truckload of muscle being injected into the Storm side for sure. And then Xavier Coates, they've got one of two options. You can either bring in Remus Smith or you can bring in Grant Anderson. One of those two players will be filling in for Xavier Coates this weekend. I'm sure of it. I'm just putting it out there. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But that's what I'd be putting out there as well. For the Sydney Roosters, team lists a little bit more settled, but the big exclusion that I think is going to be coming this Friday or this Tuesday for Teamless Tuesday is Joseph Manu. He re-aggravated his hamstring injury, left with about half an hour remaining. Not that that freaking mattered in the end anyway. But Joseph Manu, I don't expect to play this weekend. And Joseph Suaalii showed uh, concussion symptoms at halftime, so he didn't return to the paddock in the Sydney Roosters win this past Saturday night. So Manu, I think, is definitely out. Unsure on Joseph Suaalii. So if Manu's out, I think Corey Allen or Drew Hutchison could come in, maybe Drew Hutchison. But the other thing too to look out for is that Daniel Tupou could just say, bugger it, I'm only at 70%, coach, but get me out there. There is a chance, I feel, that Daniel Tupou could come in. And what that would mean is that young Pauga, who has impressed every time he's played in first grade, he could, if Suaalii is unavailable, he could go out to Suaalii's edge and Daniel Tupou resumes his normal spot, or Junior Palgo goes out of the squad completely. On both occasions as well, in the matches between the Storm and the Roosters this season, James Tedesco did not participate in either of those contests, and his presence was sorely missed. In one of those games, I think they lost 28-8. The other one was 30-16, but the scoreline 30-16 ultra flatters, ultra flatters the Sydney Roosters in that game, because in both of those contests as well, Melbourne Storm dominated the stats by and large, but James Tedesco didn't play in either of those games. He could bring something. Also to note, Brandon Smith plays against the Melbourne Storm in Melbourne, but this time in finals. He did it earlier this season and had himself a bit of an ordinary go, but now he's got a chance to redeem himself in finals football this time. But the Melbourne Storm last weekend, their performance against the Broncos, I can't remember too many worse performances from a Melbourne Storm side in finals football. The 2008 grand final definitely springs to mind. Maybe the 2012, 2014 match against the Bulldogs, maybe, but that was a really bad performance from the Melbourne Storm. In particular, Cameron Munster and Harry Grant, they were surprisingly really poor, really, really poor on Friday night. And the thing that I'm getting at is that we have not seen the Melbourne Storm put in two bad back-to-back performances in 2023. I don't think so anyway. And with the fact that Ryan Papenhuyzen got himself injured, you could see that everybody was super emotional. Everyone was emotional, and we do all wish him a speedy recovery. But I feel like that the Storm might go absolutely bananas on the Sydney Roosters this weekend. However, there is a sniff. The Sydney Roosters have fallen from the clouds to be here in week 2 of the finals. It is unbelievable that they won that game against the Sharks the other night. There is a post-season review of mine, or a rant, or just something about the Sharks that I'm going to unleash on later on down the track. But Sydney Roosters, credit to them. You've got to respect it. I can't believe that they're there. It's insane. I think their run will come to an end, though, this weekend. I think they'll be in it for the first half. But I think the Storm, I think they're going to be emotionally up for it for Ryan Papenhuyzen. They're going to be hurt and embarrassed by the way that they performed against Brisbane this past Friday night. And back home in front of their purple fans, I think the Melbourne Storm will win this game 13+. Shifting into the second game of finals week number 2 on Saturday afternoon here in Australia, 4 p.m. kickoff, 6 p.m. local time in Auckland. The New Zealand Warriors do battle with the Newcastle Knights for the first time ever in finals football. On tab, the Warriors are $1.50. The Newcastle Knights are $2.60. And immediately, if you're already thinking about having a flirt with the Newcastle Knights, $2.60 is so much value. It is so much value on the Newcastle Knights. The overall head-to-head record stands at 24-23, with one draw thrown in there, and this will be the 49th meeting between the Warriors and the Knights this weekend. The New Zealand Warriors, they really tried their guts out against the Penrith Panthers. Panthers are just another level above. Really well and truly another level above. Even if Sean Johnson did play, I don't think they get too much closer than that. Meanwhile, today, the Newcastle Knights won one of the great finals matches of the new millennium. An argument maybe one day for all time. That was insane. That was insane. But you all did see, I saw anyway, the lack of experience in finals football show through for the Newcastle Knights, and at times for the New Zealand Warriors as well. There's still a couple of heads in that New Zealand Warriors pack that hadn't experienced finals footy before this past weekend, which makes their game this weekend so good, so exciting. This is going to be awesome between the Warriors and the Knights. In 2023, they played twice. They've shared the wins, have the Warriors and the Knights. They kicked off the season against each other in round number one. Newcastle, they have won 6 of the past 9 encounters between the New Zealand Warriors since 2019, and one of those 6 victories came at Mount Smart Stadium in the year 2019. The Knights have made the trip back to New Zealand since that time, but that was in Wellington. This is their first trip to Auckland, to Mount Smart, since the year 2019. 5 of the 5 games in a row, have been decided by 10 points or less between the Warriors and the Knights. And at the time, earlier this season, some were calling the Newcastle versus Warriors game that happened at McDonald Jones Stadium one of, if not the game of the season at that point. I probably wouldn't go that far, but it sure was a feisty, really heartful performance by both of those sides in that game, especially from the Warriors to come back from 22 points to 6 down to nearly nab it in the end for the New Zealand Warriors. Now for team list news, the big one, I anticipate Sean Johnson to return to the fold this weekend, even if he is at 70-80% himself, which means that would push Tamare Martin into the 5/8 role, which would then move Dylan Walker back to the bench in jersey 14. And I probably suggest that someone like a Freddie Lussick, who did play this past weekend, would be omitted from the side completely. But besides that one man in that shifts things around a bit, I think they're going to be by and large the same. For the Newcastle Knights, it's sort of the same thing with them, but it's a little bit simpler. I don't think Jackson Hastings will back up, make the trip to New Zealand and play. I don't think he'll play. I think they'd rather have Adam Clune come in completely fresh. He's done a job this season, and I think Adam Clune will play at halfback next weekend. And there was just an incident with Lachlan Fitzgibbon towards the end of this game today where he came off, and I don't know what happened. He was like holding a shoulder injury or something to that nature coming into the contest. So maybe there's a question mark on Lachlan Fitzgibbon. So maybe a Brodie Jones or a Dylan Lucas comes in for Lachlan Fitzgibbon instead. Just on the Warriors' finals history at Mount Smart Stadium, this will be just the 4th time that they have hosted a finals game at the venue, and they are 2-1 since they hosted their first ever finals game. And this will be the first time since 2008 that such an occasion has occurred across the ditch over in Auckland. A one-on-one matchup that I'm really looking forward to that could go the way of the New Zealand Warriors. DWZ versus Greg Marzhew. We saw that Marzhew had a few errors in him today. Someone like a DWZ could put him under even more sorts of pressure, especially if Sean Johnson is in the back line to help him out. And the forward pack, I think the Warriors have a better forward pack, but Kalen Ponga, let's talk about him for a second. Jackson Hastings came off with 5 minutes to go in that first half, and then complete captaincy, complete onus went on top of the shoulders of Kalen Ponga, and immediately he uh, he hit the turbo for Newcastle Knights. They looked a little bit better. Like, they still needed Jackson Hastings out there, but since Kalen Ponga took over the captaincy role and it well and truly fell on his shoulders, they went to another level. They went to another speed. So Kalen Ponga is the everywhere man. He is absolutely, of course, the danger man this weekend. So Chance Nickel Klukstar versus Kalen Ponga, the battle of the fullbacks. That's going to be a really intriguing battle as well. Wade Egan versus Phoenix Crossland. In my opinion, probably second versus third in the best hookers for 2023. That's going to be a really intriguing battle as well. I just want to make a note as well. In both games this season, while the Newcastle Knights lost one of them, on both occasions, Newcastle won the tackle break count. And that surprises me, because you look at the Warriors forward pack, and I said just a second ago, I think the Warriors forward pack are a little bit better than the Newcastle Knights. But on both occasions, win or loss this season, the Newcastle Knights broke more tackles than the New Zealand Warriors. We've seen over the past few weeks that the New Zealand Warriors defense has just slowed down a bit, just gone down a little bit in stature. So I think the Newcastle Knights have absolutely got the attack to crack the New Zealand Warriors for sure. At $2.60, again, if you want to take it, I can't blame you. That's so much value. However, across the ditch, Sean Johnson playing, I think there's going to be way too much emotion to overcome for the Newcastle Knights. Also, Newcastle just played 90 minutes this afternoon of high intensity finals football. I think that may be a little bit too much of a hurdle to overcome. And I think, therefore, the New Zealand Warriors I think the New Zealand Warriors will just pip the Newcastle Knights this weekend at Mount Smart Stadium. Well, based off of what I've just tipped, in preliminary final weekend on the Friday night, it's going to be Penrith versus Melbourne from Accor Stadium, okay? And then on the Saturday night, Brisbane versus the Warriors at Suncorp Stadium. That's what I'm tipping to happen. Wow. If week 2 is just as good as the first week, bring it on. That was a fascinating first week of finals football for 2023. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. It really does mean a lot. Have a very nice weekend. Hope your team wins, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care. Adios.